Good morning, and welcome to worship with the Unitarian Universalist Church of Ventura. I am the Reverend Dana Worsnop, minister of this community of pilgrims, seekers, wanderers, askers of deep questions about life, meaning, and purpose. Hello, let there be light. We gather to keep love at the center of our lives and the way that we move in the world. And it is truly a delight to be here with you. I've been gone for 6 Sundays, and I had a lovely time, very restful. Just to let you know, because people have been asking, I took one short trip, which was great fun, and then I did spend a week as the minister at family camp, which was astonishingly wonderful, and I think I'm still recovering. It is so good to see you all here and be back together again. No matter how you find yourself among us, as Zoomers arriving online, and as roomers, those who are here in the sanctuary with us. Kitty Merrill found that terminology somewhere, and I was just like, oh, we got to use that one. Zoomers and roomers, all are welcome. And whether you walked, skipped, drove, cycled, or rolled to however you got here, we are glad that you have joined us. We are a community of many beliefs, identities, origins, sexualities, and genders, and all are welcome here. We preface our services by acknowledging that our building rests on the unceded ancestral homelands of the Chumash peoples. We pause to remember that we live on ground that is sacred, ground that cries out for justice and for responsible stewardship. In so remembering, may we find the courage to do our part to restore wholeness to the earth and all her peoples. Few quick announcements. Our annual auction fundraiser is kicking off. It's underway. Yay! And the theme this year is Under the Sea. We will have a kickoff party on October 5th, and now people are accepting auction items that can also be submitted online. And you can see Sandy Adkins at the connecting table in Burke Hall after the service if you need more information. Also letting you know that the Environmental Action Team is meeting today at 11:30 in the conference room, which is behind that screen, which will be moved. And both roomers and Zoomers are welcome. There will be an open mic next Saturday, this coming Saturday, August 17th at 6 p.m. at Burke Hall. If you have a talent, musical instrument, something you want to do in an open mic. Sometimes people read poetry, they sing, all kinds of fun things. And if you just want to know how talented and lovely and enthusiastic this congregation is, it's a great place to go. And I also just want to lastly remind everyone that Water Communion will be on Sunday, September 8th. And this is a time when we gather back together, formally do a ritual of in-gathering and invite people to bring a small sample of water from a place that refreshed you over the summer or through the year, the past year, and we'll merge our waters together. And thank you again for all those who are seated in our masked-only section and for everyone respecting our protocol to stay safer here in our sanctuary. For the roomers. And so let us dive in together, for by so doing, we create sacred space.
Hello. Thank you. See, she remembers. I'm Worship Associate Sandy Atkins. We invite those of you who are joining us from cyberspace someplace to light a chalice or a candle at home as Reverend Dana lights the chalice of our free faith here in the sanctuary. We begin our service with Call from Beyond by the Reverend Susan McGinn. Sorry, it's so high it's in front of my eyes. From beyond the playful summer clouds, beyond the earth's thin blue line, from beyond the bright moon and meteor showers, we hear the call to look and listen carefully. To turn away from a world that buys and sells happiness, to fully experience the luring whisper of your heart's truth. Why not today? Why not now? We are here together at home in this evolving place, home in this ever-changing breath and body. Home in this dewy morning, even as it reaches toward a hot high noon. We hear the call from far beyond and deep within, and we do not hear it alone. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Carolyn Bierke, the music director. I'm sporting a fashionable Band-Aid from a successful surgery this week, so worry not. Our opening hymn is Gathered Here, and I have Andy and Evan that are going to help me. We're going to sing it once all together, and then we're going to divide in half. And Andy will lead the first group, and Evan will lead the second group, and we'll sing it in a round. So please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near.
My name is Lily Rappaport. I'm the Director of Family Ministry, and I'm going to call all those young or young at heart to come join me in front here for the story. So, oh, thank you.
This story is just as good.
So today's story is a metaphor. Do you know what a metaphor is? Can you explain it? Well, yeah, it's a special way of describing something by saying it's like something else. Like, that hard work was a breeze. Okay, so that's a metaphor. It's not, hard work is not really a breeze, but we're using something in place of something else. So it's a creative way of comparing two things. You know, like digging a hole. How many of you have actually dug a hole? All right. And how many of you metaphorically have dug holes? Okay. So when we listen to today's story, perhaps you could think about your own experience in what it means to be digging a hole for yourself. Okay. And then we'll come out at the other end with maybe some learning. Today's story is called Sam and Dave Dig a Hole, and it's written by Mark Barnett, illustrated by John Klassen. On Monday, Sam and Dave dug a hole. "When should we stop digging?" asked Sam. "We are on a mission," said Dave. "We won't stop digging until we find something spectacular." And so what is their mission? To dig, right? Because they're Okay, there we go. It's to find something spectacular. The hole got so deep that their heads were underground, but they still had not found anything spectacular. Do you see something spectacular in the photograph, in the illustration? Okay, but they don't see it. Yeah. Right, okay, there's a diamond, right? "We need to keep digging," said Dave. So they kept digging. Okay, now do you see anything spectacular in the dirt? Do they see it? No. Right, they just keep digging and digging. So they took a break. Dave drank chocolate milk out of a canteen, and Sam ate animal crackers that he had wrapped in their grandfather's kerchief. "Maybe," said Dave, "the problem is that we're digging straight down." "Yes," said Sam, "that could be a problem." "I think that we should dig in another direction," said Dave.
No,
Well, yes, Sam. Okay. But Sam thought that that was a good idea. Okay, sometimes it's good to change your plans. Okay. "I have an idea," said Dave. "Let's split up." "Really?" said Sam. "Just for a little while," said Dave. "It'll help our chances." That makes sense, right? Do you think that's a good idea to split up? All right. So Dave went one way and Sam went another. But did they find anything spectacular? No. "Maybe we should go back to digging straight down," said Dave. "Yeah, yes," said Sam. "That's a good idea." So Sam and Dave ran out of chocolate milk, but they kept digging. They shared the last animal cookie, but they kept digging. Do you see something spectacular? Well, maybe the dog sees something spectacular, right? Well, after a while, Sam sat down. "Dave," he said, "I am tired. I cannot dig anymore." "I'm tired too," said Dave. "We should take a rest." So Sam and Dave fell asleep. Now, what's the dog doing? It looks like he's still digging, okay. Oh, and then maybe he's going down, 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 and then Sam and Dave were falling. Sam and Dave fell down, 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 until they landed in the soft dirt. "Well," said Sam. "Well," said Dave. "That was pretty spectacular." And what do you suppose they mean when they said it was spectacular? Okay, maybe the journey was really fun, right? And not that they found that spectacular gem. So they went inside for chocolate milk and animal cookies. The end. So what do you think the moral of the story is? Maybe if you dig down into something that you enjoy, or you dig down deep enough, it might change your world perspective, and it might make you different about seeing everything.
And maybe you'll get a bone.
There's lots of bones down there. And now, if you will, in the center aisle, stand up if you're willing and able, and create a bridge of love so that we could sing the children out to their classrooms.
May your heart be at peace as you go.
Each Sunday, this congregation gives away our entire collection to an organization in the larger community or to funds that help people in our own church. Those of you who are Zoomers have two ways to give. You can click on the link posted in the Zoom chat, or you can text the word assist from your phone to the number that is on the screen. Here present, roomers can text to give if you would like, or you could still write a check or give cash and then drop it in the box at the back of the sanctuary after the service. Our offering today goes to scholarship funds for camps at our UU Camp de Benneville Pines in the San Bernardino Mountains. It'll be for a fund for us to offer scholarships to families, to kids, families, adults who wish to attend a camp, which I most heartily recommend. Because I can report firsthand how transformative it can be to spend a few days or even a whole week up in the mountains with a motley crew of UUs. And the funds we raise today will help others in the congregation find that magic too. It was amazing. As I said to someone earlier, I kept expecting my inner curmudgeon to show up and get grumpy about being at camp, but she was really quiet. She was having too good a time. I witnessed there others deepening their connection with nature and other UUs and our faith overall. Amazing conversations, great fun games played, and just that bubble that happens when you're all in the same place, on the same page, and having fun together, deepening, going deep together. Our camp is still weathering the aftermath of fires, landslides, and then the pandemic shutdown. And so the best way to support camp is to go if you can, and even if you can, to also help any and all who long for the mountains, to find them as well as the trees and the breezes up at Camp de Benneville Pines. Thank you for giving generously as you always do. The generosity of this congregation weaves a tapestry of love that we call community, that we get to also wrap around ourselves, feeling supported, loved, accepted, and just invited in. Thank you.
Now is the time in our service when we hold up the great joys and sorrows that grace our lives. We place stones and water for both the celebrations and sorrows in our hearts, making ripples that are felt throughout the entire community. Now we may speak into the gathered community or write into the Zoom chat the names of those we wish to support, memorialize, or celebrate. Reverend Dana will now place one final stone in the water for all the joys and sorrows just shared and those yet unspoken in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. May we be truly grateful for all that is our life.
Please remain seated as we sing Ubi Caritas. We'll sing it 3 times through. And Ubi Caritas translates from Latin as where kindness and love abound, God is there. Ubi Caritas et amor, Ubi Caritas, Deus ibi est. Ubi Caritas et amor, Ubi Caritas, Deus ibi est. Ubi Caritas et amor, Ubi Caritas, Deus ibi est.
The first reading today is What is a Church by Corin Arisian. If a church is just its minister, then it is only another preaching station. If a church is just its school of religion, then it is only another educational agency. If a church is just a series of programs, then it is just another discussion club. If a church is just an institution whose budget is adequately supported, then it is only another piece of social lumber, tax-free at that. If a church is just a series of potluck suppers and bazaars, then it is only another cozy group of the self-satisfied. If a church is just a social action agency, then it is only an imitation of more effective secular organizations. A church that includes all these functions but fails to be more can make little legitimate claim to being a viable religious society. Primarily, a church is the quality of interaction that cuts through every aspect, every fragment of program and activity within the church, and thus produces a sense of community. Out of this arises a consensus that enriches and sustains. A true church, then, is more than the sum of its parts. It is more than its building or its budget or its ministers' sermons. A religious society, in short, is more than an audience. It is a congregation of people who care for one another and for the vital values of the common life. Only then does the institution of the church become human.
A second reading from Rainer Maria Rilke. You see, I want a lot. Maybe I want it all. The darkness of each endless fall, the shimmering light of each ascent. So many are alive who don't seem to care. Casual, easy, they move in the world as though untouched. But you take pleasure in the faces of those who know they thirst. You cherish those who grip you for survival. You are not dead. It's not too late to open your depths by plunging into them and drink in the life that reveals itself quietly there. And so I invite you into a time of meditation. Close your eyes if you wish, place your feet on the floor if you're comfortable doing so, and breathe. Let your breathing fall into a natural rhythm. How do you thirst? What do you find when you dive down into the depths of life, of experience, of your soul? A silent meditation.
It's crowded in the kitchen. Everyone's trying to speak. Everyone's got an opinion. Everyone has a belief. There's an elephant in every room. No one's taking out the trash. There's a million miles that come between the front door and the back. If the world was a house and it was on fire, would we just put it out or let it burn higher? We wouldn't be strangers. We wouldn't be enemies. We'd run into danger. I'd save you, you'd save me if the world was a house. Secrets in the basement, closets full of rage. This house is leaning right and left, it's never stood up straight. On the porch they're praying to Jesus. Upstairs they read the stars. Looking for a hammer, looking for a nail to keep from falling apart. If the world was a house and it was on fire, would we just put it out or let it burn higher? We wouldn't be strangers. We wouldn't be enemies. We'd run into danger. I'd save you, you'd save me if the world was a house. If the world was a house. We wouldn't be strangers. We wouldn't be enemies. We'd run into danger. I'd save you, you'd save me if the world was a house. If the world was a house.
Evan and Andy, I know you prefer just to go by your band name, collective name, I've Seen Better Elephants. And yet, I want to thank you individually and collectively. That was beautiful. I know a woman, I'll call her Renee. She had been on a spiritual search all her life, though she didn't know it. Somehow, never quite satisfied, something was missing, though she could never name it. Life wasn't awful, far from it, but she sensed that something more was possible, something deeper that might fill a hole that she felt within. Therapy helped. She learned more about herself in personal growth books, though it all seemed a little, well, self-absorbed. Maybe it came closer while kayaking around the San Juan Islands. She felt almost one with the wind, water, wildlife, and the rhythms of her body as she paddled. But that didn't last. She even tried a church one Sunday, sitting self-consciously in a pew. She envied the other people, their faith. She knew she didn't share it, Jesus as personal Savior who died to redeem a sinful world was not what she was looking for. She hadn't done anything so awful that someone had to die to make up for it. And anyway, she had her doubts about the whole God thing. She left that church feeling even more left out. Then Renee found her way into a church like this one. In fact, it might have been this church. In that church, at last her yearning was met. Her doubts were accepted, even encouraged. She had found a spiritual home. I know a man, I'll call him Keith, who knew he was on a spiritual path from the time he was 6 years old, and I saw his kitten come out from under a hydrangea bush with its head sprinkled with blue petals. It was so beautiful. His heart swelled, and he knew that God was there. Keith was sure it was the God of love that he heard about at Sunday school. When Keith was 9, he felt his heart swell again with love, this time for another boy in 4th grade. Somehow he just knew he had to keep this to himself. By his teens, Keith knew he was gay and also knew that he wouldn't be welcomed in the church that he loved. He kept his silence. In his church, he heard only that God judged people like him. He knew he was losing his childhood God of beauty and love. Keith finally told the minister about his feelings for other men. Aware of the irony that the first person he came out to was a minister, the minister was actually kind. He said that he still loved Keith, loved the sinner, but not the sin. He offered Keith ways to overcome his feelings. But Keith didn't feel like a sinner. He shut the door to church once and for all, he thought. Then one day, Keith was invited to a church like this. Indeed, it may have been this church. He was amazed to find that he didn't have to remain silent about any part of himself. This was a place where his God of love and beauty could breathe. And if some disagreed with him, it made for interesting conversation, not condemnation. Keith and Renee found their way into our faith and were transformed. They found a deepening of their souls and their lives. Renee didn't even realize just how thirsty she had been. Keith had longed to satisfy a hunger for faith that enlivened his childhood. They loved the services. They cried nearly every Sunday. They got involved. Renee joined the membership committee to reach out to other shy visitors. Keith marched in the Pride Parade, carrying the church's banner himself. She served on the board. He sang in the choir. They made friends, brought wonderful and, sometimes mediocre food to potlucks. They were called to a greater generosity of both time and treasure, and they were so grateful for what they had found. Yet, a little while later, after the profound grace of acceptance and freedom became not as new to them, they found that they wanted somehow to dive even more deeply. This is a kind of plateau that many reach after being in one of our congregations for a while. This faith can open a door to even greater ways of being, and yet we don't always know where to turn next. Partly, this is because a spiritual church, a spiritual search, is never really done. We know this very well because the ongoing nature of the search, the ongoing evolution and transformation of what faith can be and do in our lives is that ongoing, that changingness is central to this faith tradition. And we embrace the wisdom of all the world's religions, and yet we don't have a particular spiritual practice or a path charted for everyone. I had a colleague who once totally set off a room of UUs by saying that they had hearts a mile wide and an inch deep. He was actually pretty snarky about it. And everyone objected and set to defending their depth, just as he had intended them to. Yet even after I had served as a minister to a couple of congregations, I sometimes wondered if there was enough here to carry me through the hardest human times, the steepest times of grief and transition. And then, just about the time that I was really wondering about this, I found how profoundly comforted and guided I was by this faith when my father lay dying. It was nothing about the redemption of sin or an afterlife. I often used to call my father the grumpy agnostic. Rather, I could look at my father and know what a good man he was. For all his flaws and failings, his life had been worthy and meaningful. It had changed mine for the better, and I was carrying forth that legacy. My faith gave me the strength I needed to love my father and to care for him well as I let him go. It helped me be fully present to his death, and it made me aware of the preciousness of his life and my own, and that was more than enough. We are among those who know they thirst, as Rilke put it. The people I spoke of this morning are composites. Their stories arise from my own experience and many that have been shared with me. And we are, they were, we are people who want a lot. Maybe we want it all. Far from being shallow, we want more of it, deeper, wider, intenser sometimes. We want to think hard and feel deeply. We don't want to shy away from challenges, but engage with them. Wrestle with them when necessary. Learn not just from the shimmering light of each ascent, but from the darkness of each fall as well, knowing that truths lie in each. There are many ways to find such depth in this faith. One is to take up a personal spiritual practice, which I highly recommend. And even though we don't have a specific practice that we say, okay, if you're a UU, you do this, I'm happy to discuss possibilities with you. And another way that we don't necessarily talk about quite as much is to deepen your practice of community. How we love the individual spiritual freedom that we find here. Though many in our congregations, perhaps even this one, are not big fans of organized religion. Anyone out there? Yet here you sit, looking actually almost organized. And I know what you mean what folks mean when they say, I don't like organized religion. Though that is a complex issue, perhaps for another Sunday. Or a board meeting, or a potluck. Lots of opportunities to discuss all this stuff. Corin Arisian was one of our faith's greatest humanist voices of the last century. And as much as I love that reading and how deeply he was going in it, his language was pretty formal, wasn't it? Because, yeah, the humanist, that's part of what humanism was like in the latter half of the 20th century. Arisian was also a devoted institutionalist, knowing that church, and yes, he used that word, help find depths together. There is, as he wrote, a quality of interaction which cuts through every aspect of the church and thus produces a sense of community. Out of this arises a consensus which enriches and sustains. The church is more than a building, a budget, and minister, more than even all of you as an audience to it all. Because you aren't an audience, you are a congregation, and that there's something different going on when we join as a congregation. Ultimately, a church creates depth and meaning among a congregation of people who care for one another and for the vital values of common life. For only then is the church, and only then are we fully human. And oh, how we need each other. By ourselves, we can get pretty darn deep. I've had moments in meditation that were life-changing. Yet there are places that we can only go together. For we create a larger energy, find deeper truths together. We so need each other for all of this. And as our dear elephants sang a little bit on the stark side earlier. Oh, and thank you for that metaphor. Oh my gosh, another metaphor is beautiful. If the world was a house, and it kind of is, isn't it? If the world was a house and it was on fire, would we just put it out or let it burn higher? If the world was a house and it was on fire, we wouldn't be strangers. We wouldn't be enemies. We'd run into danger. I'd save you and you'd save me if the world was a house and it was on fire. Well, it's a good metaphor because the world actually is a house, metaphorically. It's our blue boat home, as we sing about it, and there are many fires, literal and metaphorical, that are springing up all around us. And in the face of them, because you are, I know I will do all I can to save you, and because I am, you will do all you can to save me and everyone we see in danger, because It's that kind of danger, it's that kind of stark danger that helps us realize, oh, wait a minute, you may be a stranger, you may even in other cases feel like an enemy, but wow, we are facing this thing together and we're gonna save each other. We will grip ourselves, we'll grip each other for survival. Unitarian Universalism encourages depth of mind and heart and depth that asks something of each of us. It asks us to live deeply, and it asks us to show up for others as they do too. There is great potential for deep dialogue and profound meaning here in this church. You can get to know others who are clearly on a spiritual path, but perhaps one wildly different from yours. And here we ask you to engage your own path and to truly journey with others. When we think of creating community as a spiritual practice that enriches and sustains and challenges us, and nudges us and comforts our tender, broken hearts, and then helps heal us and move newly into the world. When we make that a spiritual practice, it calls us to a quality of being different than we know in the rest of our lives. Together, we create a place of love and kindness. And yes, it can be messy, though not, it can be messy. It can be buckets of fun, but it's not always actually wildly pleasant because we're all a bunch of humans trying to figure this thing out as we go along. And that just has so many layers and levels and complications. My favorite dodecahedron doesn't even come close to reflecting it all. And that is actually true of every other human spiritual practice. Because you have found yourself here in a church that hopefully speaks to mind and heart, in a community that wants you to bring your whole self to the spiritual quest. You have found, I hope, a place that can be home. It can be both home and a point of embarkation. So dive in. Show up on Sundays if you can, whether on Zoom or in the room. Open your mind and your heart. Take your spiritual self seriously. Listen deeply. Show up for one another. Be the church. Amen. May it be so. I invite you now into a time of prayer. Holy beingness of many names and no name, depths of the soul enlivening love, Spirit of life which dwells within and among and beyond us this day and always. May we dive deep into the well of experience, all the possibilities that life holds. May we seek the depths of the soul. May we seek the depths, the possibility of human connection that transforms. And may we know it all as love. May we keep love at the center of it all. And may all those who are ill find healing. May those who are in despair find hope. May those who are without shelter find home. And may those who are suffering conflict and war in so many places on our sweet blue boat home May they and we all know peace. Blessed be.
Please rise in body or spirit and join in singing When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and the gospel with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Please join me in reading the words on the screen as we prepare to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. Those we carry into our lives until we are together again.
So all here gathered in the sanctuary are invited for, after the service, for coffee, tea, bagels, and conversation, deep conversation. And while you're there, you can visit, you might want to drop by the big round table with the under the welcome sign to visit with friendly folk who are waiting to say hello. And on your way out, I remind you that you can drop a cash or check in the collection box on the back wall of the sanctuary, and then come on back. The earth, the world is a house, and it's kind of on fire, and that's something that the Environmental Action Team is addressing directly. And so you can come back to the conference room here and also join that meeting either in person or on Zoom. And this is a great place to work together to put out some of those fires. I leave you with actually a mashup from the Reverend Robert Mabry Doss and Rilke. These words: for all those who see God, may God go with you. For all who embrace life, may life return your affection. For all those who seek a right path, may a way be found. and the courage to take it step by step together. 4, it's not too late to open your depths by plunging into them and drink in the life that reveals itself quietly there. Who knows, you actually may find the pearl or the gem or a bone for your dog. Go forth in peace, go forth in love. May it be so.